college football. Picks for UFC Fight Night this coming weekend. That'll be up tomorrow. Check it out. Support it. I don't know if you like it. Review it. Subscribe it.
All of the above.
Have fun with it.
All of the above.
And let us know later what you think. All right, let's start in the association tonight. 2 games that have yet to tip off. So let's fire away with some early bets. Game number 1, the Jazz of Utah laying 10.5. Total of 215.5 are getting set to host the Indiana Pacers.
Jazz at home the last 2 seasons have been sweet, sweet music for those who have taken them against the spread. Going back to last year and including this year when they're 3-1 overall at home against the spread. They're 30-15-1 the last 46 games they've played at home. So Indy coming off the second leg, or on the second leg, pardon me, of a back-to-back where they played in Denver last night at altitude, lost to a Denver Nuggets team minus Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. Now they come to Utah, staying at elevation, probably tired, lungs and legs burning, and they just might not be a good team right now. Karis LeVert's been questionable. Don't think he's going to play. This Utah team is one of the best in the NBA in terms of net rating, offensive, defensive rating. They're awesome at home. They're rested. One of the few teams that didn't play last night when we saw 26 teams in action. It's a big number. Don't lay it with the Jazz.
Agreed. Glad we're off on a friendly foot to start this show. I'll lay the big number as well. A couple points here. You're talking about playing last night for Utah. Indiana. This is their final game of a 4-game road trip. Second half of the back-to-back. A lot of times you see these teams come out west, and when they circle back, they end in Denver or Utah and then continue on their way. That's why Denver and Utah can rack up so many wins. That spot right there. To your point on Utah at home this season, it's only 4 games. They're 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, and they're winning by an average of 12.7 points per game. Why? Extraordinary balance. Number 2 in offensive rating, number 8 in defensive rating, number 2 in net rating. Very good team, very big number. We're probably going to have to worry about the back door in this one. So if you're interested in not having to call your cardiologist tomorrow, this might not be the game for you. Keep it in mind, we're both going to lay the big number with the Utah Jazz. Game number 2, the Clippers of Los Angeles, laying 6, total of 211 against the Miami Heat. This game at one point was Clippers -3. Yep. Now it's up to 6. No Jimmy Buckets tonight.
And the fact that Jimmy Buckets is out obviously hurts, but I think this has overcorrected. I think there's value now on the Miami Heat. Ooh. Even without Jimmy Butler, this is still one of the best teams in the NBA. They're a team right there with Golden State and Utah that have been amongst the most impressive in the NBA this season. And although missing Butler will hurt on both ends, they have a defensive stopper in Bam Adebayo to compensate, along with Kyle Lowry now at the point. And then offensively, Tyler Hero, coming off the bench, has an even bigger green light to light it up. And Hero has not only returned to bubble hero, which he was his rookie season when they went to the NBA Finals. Yes. He's better than that now. This guy is like 24 points per game off the bench. So I think Tyler Hero will pick up that offensive slack. Lowry and Adebayo will pick up that defensive slack. And they will, I like having 6 in my pocket. Even if they don't win outright, I think they can keep this close against the Clippers in LA.
Good logic. And blowing that game against the LeBron-less Lakers team last night, going to overtime, you're going to get a better effort than I think some people realize tonight. I like where you're at. I will also play the under in this game, sitting at 211. No buckets is going to hurt that Miami offense. He's averaging 23 points per game, and he's shooting over 50% from the floor so far this season. It's a young season. Those are both career bests for Jimmy Butler, even though it is a young season. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of quality offensive production coming off the floor. The Clippers have had a very good defensive start to the season this year. All right? They've won 5 straight. They've covered 4 straight. They're 3rd in defensive rating. They're playing well. The opposition they had during this recent streak, not so good, but you can only beat who's in front of you. They've been solid on the defensive end. A little shaky on offense, like the under at 211. So that's some hoops for you. The appetizer, so to speak. Let's get to some main course action. Thursday night football from Miami, Florida tonight. It's the Miami Dolphins catching 8.5 points against the Baltimore Ravens. The total is 46. Let's focus on the side or the total. How would you attack it?
I'm actually going to attack both with a 6-point teaser.
There you go.
I don't love that this was 7.5, went up to 8.5, but the 6-point teaser still keeps me under a Justin Tucker field goal. That's all we need to win that leg of the teaser. Then I'm going to attack the total, tease that up to 52, and play the under. Joe, I know that the Jets and the Colts had a scoring bonanza on Thursday last week, but prior to that, pointed out, the Jets.
The Jets.
The Jets are Republicans. I don't believe it. But you pointed out prior to that 6 straight Thursday night games had gone under the total. And I like teasing this up to play under. I think the Ravens will score. They certainly have the capability to do so. I'm not so sure with Jacoby Brissett what this Dolphins offense is going to be able to do against a Ravens defense that is not what they have been in years past because of injury, but is still capable enough to take advantage of Jacoby Brissett. No Devontae Parker, no Will Fuller. All you have to worry about is Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. Their run game has pretty much been non-existent as they work through a committee of backs led by Salvin Ahmed and Myles Gaskin. So, especially with Brissett being the starting quarterback, I like teasing this up to 52, playing that under and teasing the spread down to 2.5. A Tucker field goal gets me the win.
Same game teaser can wrap it all up in one big shot. I like it. I'll lay the big number with Baltimore tonight at 8.5. These short turnaround games, right? Coaching's key. How can you prepare your team and get them ready for the quick turnaround? I think that edge lies with John Harbaugh, who just so happens to be 9-0 against the spread in his career against the Miami Dolphins. That's insane. But you have to remember, a lot of those games didn't take place with these players in this year, in this situation, so we can only take that for a fraction of what it's worth. What I want you to focus on are a couple key points. Number one, Baltimore can run the ball, and they can run it well. They're number one in the NFL, right? This is a tough offense to scheme for in just 4 days of time. And meanwhile, Miami struggled against the run to begin with. 17th in run defense so far this year. On the offensive side, Jacoby Brissett, captain, check down. Everyone loves Brissett inside the locker room. Great leader, hard worker, all the good stuff comes out. But when it's time to get in between, the sidelines to start playing, he can't get through the progressions fast enough. The offense gets mired down, and this unit's already 28th in the NFL in scoring. So ultimately, I don't see a whole lot happening there. Miami has home field advantage, you might say. They're 1-3 at home this season. They beat Houston, who's absolutely terrible. And that game was actually close for a good portion of it last Sunday. So I'd be worried about that. Minus 39 is their point differential at home, laying it with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, speaking of the Baltimore Ravens, quarterback Lamar Jackson has been on an absolute run as of late. Last Sunday, before Jackson and the Ravens came back to beat the Minnesota Vikings in overtime, Jackson was 20-1 to win the NFL MVP award. That number dropped all the way to 9-1 after that performance, as he's getting a lot of hype. Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky have been hyping him up on the NFL show on ESPN, and now we have the big question. Would you be willing to pay 9-1? Would you take that right now for Lamar Jackson to win MVP?
Yeah, I wish I would have done it last week, but I still think there's some meat on that proverbial bone, especially more so compared to guys like Brady Allen and Kyler Murray. Lamar Jackson.
Let me jump in real quick. Shocking that Josh Allen is plus 350. Shocking. Plus 350, 4-1, wherever he is last week. I mean, I know everyone's in love with the Bills. He's not putting up huge numbers this year.
I agree.
Shocking.
I agree with that. I think Lamar Jackson is more deserving of those odds than Josh Allen is, to be perfectly honest with you. That's why I think there's still value on Lamar right now, and why I would bite even at 9-1, thinking there's meat on that bone. Joe, Lamar Jackson's 17-game pace this season for offensive output. 4,694 passing yards.
That's good.
1,275 rushing yards.
That's incredible.
And shockingly, only 32 TDs. He's kind of had some bad TD luck. That's total, rushing and throwing. So I think there's, in the second half of the season, some positive regression coming where you can get closer to 35 or 40 total TDs. And you're talking, when you add that up, almost 6,000 yards of total offense from one single human being. I know it's a 17-game schedule, but all right, take away 330 yards, which is basically his average there, and you're still talking about a guy who's accounting for 5,500 yards of total offense over a 16-game schedule. The stats, more than I think any of these quarterbacks that we're talking about, favor Lamar Jackson. Now it's the narrative where I think we can paint a really solid case around Lamar having to do more or providing more value at the quarterback position to his team than anyone else. Because not only is he throwing as well as all those guys, he's running it as well as basically, Ezekiel Elliott.
Everyone but Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly. He's basically the third best running back in the NFL, will also be in the third or fourth best quarterback in the NFL, wrapped into one single person. He is the Shohei Ohtani of the National Football League. And so I think he's very deserving when you consider the injuries that they have had to deal with on offense, for their running back position.
Which is all their running backs.
On their defense, losing Marcus Peters for the year. That was part of their great cornerback tandem. So their defense has taken a step back, not because they're not good and Wink Martindale can't coordinate. They've had bad injury luck. But still, Lamar has lifted him to a two-loss season to this point. 6-2 so far. So I think I think he should be the favorite. So 9-1, I'm definitely betting Lamar Jackson right now.
I agree with you. 9-1's a pretty good price. It implies a 10% probability. I think he's got a better than 10% chance of winning. They could win the division. They're putting up wins. The schedule moving forward isn't all that brutal. There's a lot here to like. To your point, and this is one thing you left out, and I'm glad you did because it gives me something to talk about because you dissected that beautifully. This is not your traditional Ravens defense. Normally, the Ravens are a very, very good defense with good players on offense, and they have this balanced attack. This year, Baltimore is 23rd in total defense and 21st in scoring defense. So it speaks to even more of what Lamar Jackson has had to do to get this team to this point because he doesn't have that defensive help. He's on his 5th string running back. Who are his best wide receivers, by the way? Like Sammy Watkins is never that great. Hollywood Brown, for every drop he has a touchdown. It's like 50-50. Shad Bateman's coming around. Mark Andrews at tight end. But ultimately, there are some guys that are in this conversation, that have a much better supporting cast than Jackson has. So 9-1's a good price. I don't think it's going to be there much longer, although it is going to be tough to get by Tom Brady. Like, we have to bring that up. He's the favorite right now. I mean, 25 TDs, 5 INTs, his defense stinks. Brady's been incredible. That's a newsflash, I'm sure.
I do think Brady has been incredible. I think Jackson has been better, objectively.
Yeah. You can make the case. Yeah. It's going to be a compelling race down the stretch. Josh Allen, I love him. I'm surprised his odds are like that.
I am too.
His numbers aren't nearly as good as they were last year, but Buffalo's still playing very, very well. All right, time for Blind Bet. Something that we shockingly found a way to win last week. Here's how it works. 2 envelopes. This week I will be picking. Let's bask in the glory a little bit.
I mean, the Nyheim Hines over happened on like 3rd play from scrimmage or something.
Didn't he have like a 25-yard touchdown run right out of the gate?
And then I know you were not really blind bet the first half over.
No.
Because you were on the under for the game.
Yeah, you stuck me with it. But I came away with something there. A little something. The value of hedging, I guess, on display. So here's how the game works. There is a prop bet in each of those 2 envelopes that my very handsome colleague is holding right now. I will be tasked with picking one of those 2 envelopes. I will examine the prop within it, and of course these are props for tonight's Thursday night game between Baltimore and Miami. If I like the prop, I stick. If I don't like it, I stick it to Tyler, and I take the other prop, and we see who can shake it down and win. So, here we go. I went with 1 2 weeks ago when I was up, and it failed me. It failed me miserably. I think we both lost. I will be taking the deuce this week. Give me the deuce.
I thought you went with 2 last time because
I always go with 2, and I went with 1 to shake it up last time and it burned.
All right, well, I don't remember, but I'll take your word for it.
Now, in fairness, I had been going with the deuce before that, and I had also been losing. So it really did not matter what number I was taking. They were all resulting in losses. So here we go. The aforementioned Hollywood Brown going over 4.5 total receptions plus 130.
130.
I don't know what to do with this. I just kind of mocked him for how many drops he's had this year. So I feel like I kind of have to stick with that take, or I'm a bit of a sellout by riding with him. You can have Hollywood Brown. Although I do think this is a pretty good bet.
I like the payout. Plus 130.
Plus 130.
I do like the payout.
You go ahead. Enjoy Hollywood Brown. I shouldn't have bashed him early. Your thoughts on that? Do you feel okay about that?
I do. I would have liked a Mark Andrews a little bit better because I think the better way to exploit the Dolphins is with the tight end position, although that's not to say you can't exploit them with wide receivers. The Dolphins this year, Joe, giving up 280.9 passing yards per game. Woo! Only 2 teams are allowing more passing yardage per game than the Miami Dolphins. And we thought they'd have a good defense coming into the season. They have been one of those disappointing units, like the Washington football team defense, all the points they've been getting up. So I think I would rather have Brown yardage because he's a big play receiver, and Miami gives up big plays, but I do think he can get 5 catches of the rock, and especially at this price, we're going to dabble, we're going to sprinkle.
I hope he has 4 late in the 4th. He gets targeted, he drops it, validating my take from earlier, hurting your bet, and then we'll see what ends up happening with this. This will be
this guy.
Over 1.5 made field goals plus 105. Feels like every Ravens game ends with the Justin Tucker field goal. So that's 1. And then I need 1 more at some point in there. He's on 2 of my fantasy teams. Everything about this is just warm and cozy.
Loves it.
I got him in an auto draft in one situation. I walked away from the computer for too long, and an auto stuck me with a kicker 3 rounds from the end, and then, of course, getting mocked for taking a kicker too early. Joke's on you, everyone in that league. Justin Tucker's pretty good.
Do you get bonuses for length of field goal? So the 66-yarder was like an 18-point field goal?
I think it won me the week. I think it won me the week that 66-yard field goal. Okay, so I'm on Tucker over 1.5 made field goals plus 105. Hollywood Brown over 4.5 receptions plus 130. Let's cash them both. Okay. I'm okay with that. Speaking of cashing, could we please hit this one time, please? The Parlay to Paradise.
One time.
Becoming a prison sentence, this freaking segment. Parlay to prison is what we should call it. Okay, so without even setting it up, here come the results.
Wait. Did we just come up with an idea there?
Parlay to prison?
Parlay to prison. Get all 5 wrong. And that's the only way we... No, we're not. Okay.
We're very likely to have that happen.
Just
In case you haven't been following this over the last 2 years. Parlay to prison. So if we get all 5 wrong, what ends up happening? Some sort of punishment.
Yeah.
I would hope not prison. Because it would feel like if I'm going to go to prison, I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to go find a bank and try to take my chances there. It's probably too much for a live television show. So we're going to back up. It's all just
We're going to go Ocean's 11 on them, huh? better way to land in the clink than that? Than parlay to prison?
This is all just a joke for any federal agents who may be watching. We're much too lazy to try to pull off some sort of caper like that.
Facts.
That's actually a fact. All right, so here we go. Last week, you go 1-1. Great. I went 1-1. Great. Uchagras. Thanks for nothing.
No chicken parm for you, my friend.
Yeah. It's all right. We appreciate the help. All right, so here we go. Let's fire away. You got 2 for us. Where are you going? Are you going college exclusive this week?
No, I'm going to go college and NFL. So we'll start in college, and you know one of my favorite things to do, fade Kansas football.
Very much.
Texas, is laying 30.5 at home against the Jayhawks. And again, this may seem like a big number.
Yes, it is.
But all these big numbers that Kansas gets a head start, they're just 1-8 ATS this season. The only time they've covered was that outlier anomaly, almost beat Oklahoma in Lawrence game. They came back the next week, and Oklahoma State was laying like 35.5. They lost the game 52-3. Last week, the Kansas State Wildcats are laying 24. They lose by 25. Again, don't be afraid of a big number when Kansas football is involved. They're wretched. It's been a printing press. 8-1 is your record if you've just bet against Kansas against the number all season long. So I will continue to do that for a Texas team, especially that has a good offense and can score on this Kansas team with their offense. Then I'll go to the NFL. And I want to get a little juice for our parlay to paradise.
I like it.
I really like the Raiders in this bounce back spot against the Chiefs. If it was +3, I would just take the spread and have the field goal kind of securing the push. But since it's under 3, why not just go to the money line, get +120 since we're talking parlay to paradise? I do think this is a live dog, home island game, a team that they beat last year in Kansas City when Kansas City was actually good. We know that Derek Carr and the money in the jar, Las Vegas Raiders can score points. Their defense can get after the quarterback, Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue. That's been an issue for Patrick Mahomes. He's taken a beating. He has not been able to push the ball downfield. Travis Kelce, he's regressed this year. Tyreek Hill's catching a lot of passes, but they're not explosive. I think the Raiders, fresh off a difficult 1 p.m. East Coast kickoff at MetLife with the Henry Ruggs situation, all that's now finally behind them. They're back home. They can reset. They know Ruggs is no longer a part of the team. They know Gruden's no longer a part of the team. They know how they have to approach the rest of this season, and it starts in a rivalry game at home in primetime against your most hated division rival, and they're a home dog. I think they can win this game outright.
These games are good. I attended one in Oakland a few years ago. It was the first game I ever took my son to. He was 2. Horrible decision to take a child, a 2-year-old, to the black hole for a Thursday night game. We got out of the car, and you could imagine the first thing we smelled was not what a 2-year-old should be smelling at all. Huge mistake. But the Raiders did win that game late. It was a hell of a game against Kansas City Chiefs. All right, first one for me tonight, the Baltimore Ravens. I might blow this entire thing up within the next 90 minutes, believe it or not, but I'm that confident going against Jacoby Brissett. I know Baltimore's played a lot of tight games this year. Get in, run the football, get out. There's not a whole lot to get excited about with Miami. They beat New England in the first game of the season, lost 7 straight, and then beat Houston in a tight game. Nobody plays a tight game against Houston, except the aforementioned New England Patriots, who for some reason found themselves in a duel with Houston. But that's neither here nor there at the moment, okay? Baltimore. I laid it out all show. I'm not going to get any more details. Get up early, get the job done late. Pick number 2, college football Saturday. Okay. Nevada. This line is wrong. It should be north of 3. But what happened is Nevada beat San Jose State last week in a game they should not have won. They were a 12-point favorite. They only won by 3. They were outgained by 82 total yards. They should have lost. And if they lost, this spread would be maybe 4.5. Because they won that game, San Diego State only laying 2.5 to 3, depending on the book right now. Guess what? Everything San Diego State wants to do in this game should work. They want to run. Nevada's not very good defending the run. Nevada wants to throw the ball. They're top 5 in passing offense. San Diego State doesn't give up big plays in the passing game. That's what their defense does. It's like Texas A&M. Keeps everything in front of them. They force you to matriculate the ball down the field and then eventually make a mistake before you get to the end zone. So, those are the two. The Ravens tonight could blow the whole thing up, and if I don't, we're going right to Saturday's action. The Aztecs, -2.5 over Nevada. Special guest this week, Jason Fitz. You know him, you love him. I don't. He was in town for the Fury Wilder fight a few weeks ago. Caught me for a steak, forgot the wallet. Fantastic story on his behalf. Wow. Haven't heard from him since. Wow. Imagine that. Let's see what he's got for us.
Everybody thinks I'm going to pick the Raiders game here because we all know my fandom, but I never bet on my favorite team. So I'm going to go into the college football world. You know I live in that all the time, and I love the Oklahoma-Baylor matchup. First of all, I don't think Oklahoma has looked particularly great. Second of all, Baylor's defense holding teams to about 21 points a game. It's stouter than they get credit for being. And Baylor 11-4-1 in their last 16 games as an underdog against the spread. I actually like Baylor outright in this game, but I love Baylor with the points.
Thank you, Fitz. The leather jacket was a nice touch. All right, so here we go. Let's get after it. We've got 3 college games we got to get through tonight. And if we do, we close it Sunday Night Football right here locally, right down the street.
I love it.
$2,800. Could blow that in a heartbeat. I look forward to the day where that actually happens. All right. Fitzy likes Baylor in the matchup against Oklahoma. We're going to pick it right now as we get into our college football pick'em segment of the week. Hard to believe that it's week 11. We begin with the Big 12 matchup. Oklahoma laying 5.5, total of 62 against Baylor. Do you see it the same way Fitz does?
I'm not sure because I don't like the side. I'm going to attack the total here, and 62 is seemingly a lofty number, but this is Big 12 football, baby. And Oklahoma and Baylor this season both 6-3 to the over. These are over teams. We know the offensive ceiling has been raised in Norman with Caleb Williams in for Spencer Rattler, and we know Baylor can put points on the board with the system they've had seemingly now for decades on end. So I think 62, and which will be, I think, a close game, but both teams give me 30, 33 points, and we're looking at an over here. Again, that's been the trend for both, 6-3 to the over this season.
100% agreement.
Okay.
Love this bet. Since Caleb Williams took over for Spencer Rattler, 48 points per game the Sooners are averaging. It's been a complete transformation because early in the year, the Sooners couldn't score on offense, but they leaned on the defense to get the job done. Now the defense isn't bothering to show up. In the same time that Caleb Williams took over and the offense is averaging 48 a game, the defense is giving up 31 a game. That's fantastic because guess what? Baylor is scoring 36 points per game this season. They are top 20 in the country in scoring. They're also top 10 in yards per play. Dave Aranda came over from LSU. He's the defensive coordinator. He's the head coach at Baylor. All right, you thought this would be a defensive-minded team, and they have played some good defense, but offensively, he has turned this program around, and they have become a juggernaut. They're off that loss to TCU last week. People are sleeping on them. They're going to be hungry. Shootout is the name of the game in the Big 12 this weekend. Let's go to the Big 10. For the first of 2 matchups in the Big 10 we're going to talk about. Ohio State laying 21. A bit of a scare last week against Nebraska, but they survived. They laid 21, 62.5 against the Purdue Boilermakers, who shocked the world again. They have enough to shock the world one more time.
I like Purdue plus 21. My official play here, though, is under the 62.5. And that would kind of correlate with Purdue keeping this game low scoring, limiting scoring to better increase their chances of upsetting an Ohio State team. They're not going to win a shootout against Ohio State, rest assured you me. But Purdue, defensively, they're a stout squad. This season, they have a very noticeable trend of 7-2 to the under.
Good defense.
Purdue, very good defense. So now that it's up to 3 full touchdowns instead of just the 20, I like the Purdue side plus 21, but I will stick with the under, thinking that Purdue can keep it close inside a 3-touchdown or 3-score game. And if that's the case, it's probably because it's a lower scoring game and Ohio State's not putting up 50, 60 points.
Bit of a disagreement here. I will lay the 21 with the Buckeyes. Not a pick I love, but I've seen Purdue in this spot. I've seen this movie before. It happened a few weeks ago. Purdue shocks the world against Iowa. Big celebration. Then next week they host Wisconsin and they get rolled by 17. They were never in the game. It was the ultimate letdown spot. So now here we are again. You get up from Michigan State. You beat them. This time, however, you're not at home. You have to go on the road to Ohio State, who's coming off their own scare, and they're looking to put some quality points on the board. So I wonder, is Purdue going to be able to get up, or are they going to fall flat again? Keep this in mind as well with Purdue. They shocked the world 3 years ago, almost to the day. when they took out Ohio State. I believe, I want to say Urban Meyer was there, but I don't think he was. But they wrecked the Ohio State season. Rondale Moore had a fantastic game. It was at Purdue. It was Saturday night. It was this massive upset just over 3 years ago. Ohio State has not forgotten about that. Okay, they are well aware that this team is coming in live and coming in hot. Put it on them early. Let's wrap it up with one more game in the Big Ten. This is going to be at noon Eastern. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, all that personality, traveling to Pennsylvania, laying a 1.5, total of 48.5 against the Penn State Nittany Lions.
I'll take a 1.5 with your Nittany Lions in my pocket. A little head start on the scoreboard there since this game is at Penn State. That's a little bit of an advantage. Michigan, I'm not sure if they ever were really that good. I mean, they exceeded my expectation to start the season. Then they get blown up by Michigan State and Kenneth Walker. Now, I guess they still have something to play for here, but Penn State to me is, as Stanford Steve pointed out earlier in the week, they're better than an unranked team. I don't think they should be unranked, and we know the trouble that Jim Harbaugh has had throughout the course of the entire schedule against ranked teams, against good teams, and I think Penn State, especially at home, with that defense, can be a good team against Michigan. So it's pretty much a coin flip game. Having an extra 1.5 on the scoreboard for the team I'm picking, I'll take it.
I see what you and Steve are saying. You can't lose to Illinois. You can't lose to Illinois with 2 other losses and then want to be ranked. Well, you are good enough to be ranked. You're better than some of the teams that are in the top 25. But that's a digression. I'm with you. I take Penn State as well on this one. I think it's a cheap price. It's a really cheap price to play the Lions at home against Michigan, okay? This Michigan team, to dive into what you were talking about, they've got 1 loss, and I was wildly wrong on them this year. I had the under on the win total. I've already gotten burned on that one. But the teams they beat up on to build up this ranking are nobodies.
Right.
They've got a top 10 defense in scoring D and opponent yards per play. So on the surface, that looks very good. But they played 6 Big Ten games so far. 4 of them have come against awful offenses. Wisconsin, Northwestern, Indiana, and Rutgers. Those 4 teams rank 88 or worse in scoring in the country. If you take Wisconsin out of the equation, the other 3 rank 110th or worse. Now, there are 2 other Big Ten games they played. They were at Nebraska, and they were at Michigan State. They gave up an average of 33 points per game in those matchups. They're going to be at Penn State. Penn State can score. Penn State's D can get stops. That's legit. They played Ohio State. They've played Auburn. They're a top 10 defense in their own right. They're going to get it done. Sean Clifford, big win if this is the final season. And then eventually, you probably lose to Michigan State at the end of the line, but whatever. That's it. Let's figure out a way to get one marquee win before the end of the season. All right, let's close it out with a little punching of the face and kicking of the head and everything in between. UFC Fight Night 197 Saturday from the UFC Apex right down the street here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Main card starts at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Main event features a featherweight showdown. This is at 145 pounds between number 2 ranked Max Holloway and number 8 ranked Yair Rodriguez. Holloway is a huge favorite, minus 650. Rodriguez plus 475 on the comeback. How would you attack it?
My UFC guy says that this one can go deep into deep waters. I'm going to stay away from betting rounds because I didn't like the prices on over 2.5 and over 3.5 rounds. So I'll just play Holloway to win by KO, TKO, or disqualification. We see that he's a massive, massive favorite. And Rodriguez is, I guess, his style is unique enough that he may give Holloway some opportunities with his counter to knock him out. Now, the big concern is, can Holloway win by submission when he gets him on the mat? Of course, but I'm going to play because of this price at plus 138, Holloway to win by KO, TKO, or DQ, thinking that Rodriguez opens himself up being aggressive.
Very similar. So you're plus 138 on that. You can add the submission and then play it for plus 130, which is where I'm at. I'm going to put that in there. Submission on its own is 11-1. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but here's how this fight's going to go. Holloway has excellent cardio. He wants to stand, he wants to punch. Rodriguez is a kickboxer. If it works for Holloway standing up, we get a knockout and we both win. If not, he can easily get a takedown. He has a huge advantage on the mat with the grappling over Rodriguez. That's Rodriguez's weak spot, and that's how I think we get it stopped. Just don't go to the cards. It's Holloway on the cards. We're both burned, so we need a stoppage. Excellent work. And to all of our veterans out there, happy Veterans Day. Thank you for everything you do to provide us with the freedoms that we have. He's Tyler Fulghum. I'm Joe Fortenbaugh. This is Bet. Enjoy the game tonight.